Welcome to another bomb dropper explosion, nuclear catastrophe, pyroclastic flow from the digital pit boss, the one you love to hate. We're about to get it in. I'm going to play a couple of games of chess while we listen to the audio. We are on the Battle Chess Part 3. It's the Act of 1871. Nation States Corporation, which makes your ass a slave to the goddamn rhythm. And y'all know how I give them. Now, hopefully, the haters don't come in and hate this one. Because if you hating, so what? I can't stop you. Trust me. I can't stop you. Hit it.
First, the Congress passes an act to provide a government for the District of Columbia, also known as the Act of 1871. When you fully understand the ramifications of the past, you will then fully understand the ramifications of the present, and you will know how to change the future. And here is where our story begins. With no constitutional authority to do so, Congress creates a separate form of government for the District of Columbia, a 10-mile square parcel of land. The act was passed when the country was weakened and financially depleted in the aftermath of the Civil War. It was at that time a strategic move by foreign interests, international bankers, who were intent upon gaining a stranglehold on the coffers and neck of America. Congress cut a deal with the international bankers, specifically the Rothschilds of London, to incur a debt to said bankers. Because the bankers were not about to lend money to a floundering nation without serious stipulations, they devised a way to get their foot in the door of the United States. The Act of 1871 formed a corporation called the United States, all in capital letters. The corporation, owned by foreign interests, moved in and shoved the original Constitution into a dustbin. With the Act of 1871, the organic Constitution was defaced and in effect vandalized and sabotaged. When the title was capitalized and the word "for" was changed to "of" in the title. The Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution created the United States of America in all capital letters. It operates in an economic capacity and has been used to fool the people into thinking it governs the republic. It does not. Capitalization is not insignificant when one is referring to a legal document. This seemingly minor alteration has had a major impact on every subsequent generation of Americans. What Congress did by passing the Act of 1871 was create an entirely new document, a constitution for the government of the District of Columbia, an incorporated government. This newly altered constitution was not intended to benefit the Republic. It benefits only the corporation of the United States of America and operates entirely outside the original organic constitution. Instead of having absolute and unalienable rights guaranteed under the organic constitution, we the people now have relative rights or privileges. One example is the sovereign's right to travel, which has now been transformed under corporate government policy into a privilege that requires citizens to be licensed. An example would be passports. By passing the Act of 1871, Congress committed treason against the people who were sovereign under the grants and decrees of the Declaration of Independence and the Organic Constitution. The Act of 1871 became the foundation of all the treason since committed by government officials. The United States isn't a country, it's a corporation. In preparation for stealing America, the puppets of Britain's banking cabal had already created a second government, a shadow government designed to manage what the common herd believed was a democracy, but what was really was an incorporated United States. and conspiring together, this two-headed monster disallowed the common herd all of their sovereign rights under the original Constitution. To fully understand how our rights of sovereignty were ending, you must know the full meaning of the word sovereign. It means chief or highest supreme power, superior in position to all others, independent of and unlimited by others, possessing or entitled to original and independent authority or jurisdiction. This description I have cited can be found in Webster's dictionary. In short, our government, which was created by and for us as sovereigns, free citizens deemed to have the highest authority in the land, was stolen from us along with our rights. It is important to keep in mind here that according to the original Constitution, only we the people are sovereign. The government is not sovereign. Our original Declaration of Independence states, government is subject to the consent of the governed, and that's us. It doesn't take a constitutional historian to figure out that the United States government has not been subject to the consent of the governed since long before you and I were born. Rather, the governed are subject to the whim and greed of the corporation, which has stretched its tentacles beyond the 10-mile square known as the District of Columbia. In fact, it has invaded every state of the Republic. Mind you, the corporation has no jurisdiction beyond the District of Columbia. You just think it does. You see, my friends, you are presumed to know the law, which is very weird since we the people are taught nothing about the law in school. We memorize obscure facts and phrases here and there, and our teachers only gloss over the Bill of Rights. And our schools, which are controlled by the corporate government, don't delve into the Constitution at depth. After all, the corporation was established to indoctrinate and dumb down the masses, not to teach anything of value or importance. And certainly no one ever mentioned that America was sold out to foreign interests and that we were beneficiaries of the debt incurred by Congress to the national bankers. Yet for generations, Americans have had the bulk of their earnings confiscated to pay a massive debt that they did not incur. There has been an endless stream of things that people were not told, and now that you are being told, how do you feel about being made the recipient of a debt without your knowledge or consent? After the passage of the Act of 1871, Congress set a series of subtle and overt deceptions into motion, deceptions in the form of decisions that were meant to sell us down the river. And over time, the Republic took it on the chin until it was knocked down and counted out by a TKO. With the surrender of the People's Gold in 1933, the common herd was handed over to illegitimate law. And I'll bet you weren't taught that in school. And now the final snapshot. Our corporate form of governance is based on Roman civil law and admiralty or maritime law, which is also known as the divine right of kings and the law of the seas, another fact of American history not taught in our schools. And here's another wake-up call for you. Roman civil law was fully established in the 13 colonies before our nation began, and then became managed by private international law. In other words, the government created for the District of Columbia via the Act of 1871 operates solely on the private international law, not common law, which was the foundation of our republic. And it is this fact that has impacted all Americans in concrete ways. For instance, although private international law is technically only applicable within the District of Columbia and not in the other states of the Union, the arms of the corporation of the United States are called departments. As an example, the Justice Department, the Treasury Department, and those departments affect everyone, no matter where and what state you live. Guess what? Each department belongs to the corporation, to the all capital letter United States. I now pose a question. How do you feel that you know that you are now being ruled by a corporation? A corporation that operates under the Roman civil law outside the original Constitution. I challenge everyone listening to contact their congressman and see what they have to say about this. Congress is fully aware of this deception. What this great deception really means is that the members of Congress do not work for us, for you and me. They work for the corporation, for the all capital letter United States. Is it any wonder why we can't get Congress to do anything on our behalf or meet our demands or answer our questions? And here's the bottom line. Technically, legally, or any other way you want to look at this matter, the corporate government of the all capital letter United States has no jurisdiction or authority in any state of the Union, the Republic, beyond the District of Columbia. Sink in, then ask yourself, could this deception have occurred without full knowledge and complicity of the Congress? Do you think it happened by accident? And if you do, you're deceiving yourself. There are no accidents and there are no coincidences. Face the facts and confront the truth. Remember, you are presumed to know the law. They know you don't know the law, and for that matter, your history. Why? Because no concerted effort was ever made to teach you or otherwise or inform you. As a sovereign, you are entitled to full disclosure of all facts. As a slave, you are entitled to nothing other than what the corporation decides to give you. Remember, all ignorance of the law is no excuse. It's an obligation to learn the law and know how it applies to you. No wonder the arrogant corporation counted on the fact that most people are too indifferent, unconcerned, distracted, or lazy to learn what they need to know to survive within the system. We have been conditioned to let the government do our thinking for us. Now's the time to turn that around if we intend to help save our republic and ourselves before it's too late. As an instrument of the international bankers, the all capital letter United States owned you from birth to death. It also holds ownership of all of your assets, all of your property, and even your children. About all the bills, taxes, fines, and licenses you have paid or have purchased. Yes, they had you by the pockets. If you don't believe it, read the 14th Amendment. See how free you really are. Ignorance of the facts led to your silence. Silence is construed as consent. Consent to be beneficiaries of a debt you did not incur. As a South people who have been deceived hundreds of years, we are free, but in truth, we are servants of the corporation. Congress committed treason against the people in 1871. Honest men could have corrected this fraud and treason, but apparently there weren't enough honest men to counteract the lust for money and power. We have lost more freedom than we will ever know thanks to corporate infiltration of our so-called government. Do you think that any soldier who died in any of our wars would have fought if he or she had known the truth? Do you think that one person would have laid down his or her life for a corporation? How long will we remain silent? How long will we perpetuate the myth that we are free? When will we stand together as one sovereign people? When will we take back what was stolen from us? And in closing, I would like to ask the final question. If the people of America had known to what extent their trust was betrayed, how long would it have taken for a real revolution to occur? What we need now is a revolution in thought. We need to change our thinking, our world. All children deserve their rightful legacy, the liberty our ancestors fought to deserve, the legacy of a sovereign and fully free people. If we do not learn from the past, we'll be doomed to repeat it. I'd like to thank everyone for watching The Act of 1871.
If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of their money, the banks and corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of their property until their children will wake up homeless. Thomas Jefferson. Following is a timeline demonstrating when and how a private central banking cartel got control of the government, the people, and the assets of the United States. Each fact is supported by official sources. Source documents are available at www.anticorruptionsociety.com under the tab Source Documents. 1913. With the passage of the Federal Reserve Act, a private foreign banking cartel was made the fiscal agent of the United States. Source document, Representative McFadden, Congressional Record, June 1932. From the website of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, quote, the entry of the United States into World War I added to the responsibilities of the young Federal Reserve Bank. It helped finance U.S. military expenditures by becoming the fiscal agent of the federal government. 1920, Congress handed the U.S. Treasury over to the same private banking cartel via the Independent Treasury Act. Source document, Independent Treasury Act, 1920. 1921, the Council on Foreign Relations was founded to direct the media. Paul Warburg was its first director. Warburg also drafted the Federal Reserve Act and became the Fed's first governor. Paul Warburg was an agent for the Rothschilds banking dynasty. 1925, the United States Corporation Company was chartered in perpetuity in Florida by its fiscal agent. Source document, Articles of Incorporation, United States Corporation Company. This company was created without the approval of Congress, nor the knowledge and authority of the American people. Note, in 1925, the Federal Reserve Bank of New York had offices on Cedar Street and on Broadway, both cited in the Articles of Incorporation. Source document, Articles of Incorporation, United States Corporation Company. The United States Corporation Company created a maximum of 100 shares of stock. Source document, Articles of Incorporation, United States Corporation Company. The Articles of Incorporation revealed the names of 3 individuals who held only 5 shares. The other shareholders were not identified. 1920s. The U.S. Treasury was raided by the private Federal Reserve Bank, who then caused the Great Depression and bankrupted the United States Corporation Company. Source document, Representative Louis McFadden. Congressional Record, June 1932. 1933, a state of emergency was claimed and Congress gave the president unconstitutional emergency powers. Source document, Congressional Record, March 1933. On behalf of the private Federal Reserve, President Roosevelt confiscated the people's gold and forced all to use the Federal Reserve notes from then on. Source document, Congressional Record, March 1933. The Federal Reserve is a private corporation. Therefore, their notes are privately owned currency. The people and the property of the United States was hypothecated and placed unlawfully in a public trust. Source document, Representative Traficant, Congressional Record, March 1993. Hypothecate means to pledge as security without delivery of possession. 1933. The Internal Revenue Service was chartered in Delaware as a private corporation. It is not a division of the U.S. Treasury. Source document, Internal Revenue Service Corporate Charter, 1933. The United States is a private corporation with unnamed stockholders. A private corporation is its fiscal agent. A private corporation owns and circulates the currency we are forced to use. a private corporation expects us to pay them taxes. The U.S. CEO, the president, has maintained unconstitutional emergency powers for the past 80 years. Source document Senate Report 93549 and continuation of the national emergency 2012-2013. Quote, all United States offices, officials, and departments are now operating within a de facto status in name only under emergency war powers, with the constitutional Republican form of government now dissolved. Source document, Representative Traficant, Congressional Record, March 1993. Today, as has been demonstrated, the United States is just a corporate franchised network represented by their all caps names, such as State of Ohio. Corporate statutes have replaced laws. A corporate statute is a rule of a corporation given the force of law by the consent of the parties. This consent generally requires a signed contract. From Judge Dale, author of The Great American Adventure, page 102, quote, the federal and state governments are not real. They are privately owned corporations called governments. And the law is nothing more than their corporate regulations called statutes, unquote. As corporations have no souls to save nor bodies to incarcerate, they are just dead legal structures. A dead legal structure cannot represent living people nor obligate living people to laws. Therefore, a corporation cannot be a sovereign government. It can only be a legal structure for commercial contracts, which is all the so-called United States government franchise network is. From Judge Dale's The Great American Adventure, page 10, quote, all of this deception is compounded by the refusal of ordinary Americans to realize, know, or understand that it is this secrecy and duplicity of privately owned corporations being surreptitiously portrayed as American agencies and government that they have come together to fleece the American people. For more information, read Judge Dale's The Great American Adventure. Free online at anticorruptionsociety.com.
Well, can you handle it? You probably can't handle it. You probably really don't care. You probably want to go listen to them argue about history, about if we're Moors. Are we Hebrew Israelites? What is our true meaning? This right here goes too deep, cuts way too deep. You're not ready to free yourself from the economic slavery you are in. Now, if this was to be true, let's take it for truth. And in 1871, they created a corporation called United States in a country called America of sovereign free people. What is a free person? A free person is one in control of themselves. So they created a corporation and they said to you, yo, we got some rights and privileges we like to hand out, but you have to become a slave. Oh, I'm sorry, not a slave, a citizen. And by becoming a citizen, we'll identify you with a birth certification because you are commerce. So you need a certificate of birth, as Jordan Maxwell put so eloquently. When a boat pulls into the docks, it pulls into the berth, and it must present a manifesto for all of the cargo. And apparently, your certificate at birth is a manifesto. Poof, you were born. You were created into a corporation. You are what is called a sole proprietor. Now that you have a birth certificate, you're going to need an identification. A social security number. Now that we have a number on you, we will keep a record and a track of your financial obligations. You're welcome to the wonderful world of credit, but as an owner of nothing, you cannot own anything. It is illegal for the poor to have sovereignty in the kingdom of the United States, but you are allowed the illusion. So have at it. Buy yourself a house. Sorry, you can't have ownership, but you can have a deed to the house. Buy yourself a car. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't own the car, but you can have a certificate of title, but you can't have the title. Sorry. But you are welcome to the illusion. Now that you are a citizen a citizen of United States Corporation, welcome. Now, anyone presiding over this corporation of the 50 states, you cannot have a domicile while presiding as president within the United States. You may obtain a residence, but not a domicile. So your domicile shall be the District of Columbia, which is not part of the 50 states. It is a district of Columbia. What is Columbia? Columbia is a sovereign. And so, therefore, your president is not a resident of the United States, not while acting as president over it. Because a citizen cannot rule over its subjects. It is a subject. Therefore, the president turns in his citizenship for sovereignty. And being sovereign, you must not reside in the kingdom of 50 states. Sorry to spoil your little illusion. We might just be cutting too deep. Sorry. Well, back to the wonderful world of illusions and dumb shit. No, you will not get this information from the Moors, as they are begging the master for sovereignty. Sovereignty does not come in the commercial courts. Go watch the video, The Knights Templar and the Law, provided to you by the Digital Pit Boss, that guy. Hope you had fun. Welcome to the world of illusions.